Hey, it's time for another dirt video on the new build, and today we're taking a look at the dirt late models, and I gotta say, like everything else so far, I freaking love them. What's up, everybody? Thomas Brandon here. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. And like I said, we're taking a look at the dirt late models. Now, in this video, we're going to be looking primarily at the super late model, although I will cover some things about the pro late model. Um, because there was a few people that I've talked to already, and they were like, dude, I love the supers, but the pros, I don't really like them. The car doesn't want to turn and things like that. And I was able to figure out a couple of things last night. The time of recording this, you'll notice I'm in the same clothes as the midget video because I'm doing these back to back. But last night I spent about 7 hours on the late models, more specifically the pro late models. So I spent a lot of time on those. I was really um, surprised because the track that I was at was usually a very dominant, a top dominant track, and it wasn't like that. It was very, very different. So we'll cover more about that later when we talk about the track stuff, because I am going to do a separate video on that. But right now, late models, I like them. They're a lot of fun. They're way, way more fun and forgiving would be probably the best way to put it. And this was something that I heard a lot of real world late model drivers complain about with the previous build, was that the car was too unforgiving in terms of, if it was up on the bars, the car was handling pretty well, but as soon as it, like, if you made like one bobble or one mistake, or if the car fell off the bars, like all of a sudden now it's this uncontrollable, twitchy like dart. It's just boom into the wall, or it jerks left, or it was really twitchy. These are not like that. Now they're still, that doesn't mean they're easy to drive. They're not. You've got to be on throttle. You want to keep them straight just like you do in real life, but you're way more on throttle with them now than you used to be. If you remember, it used to be like it was like on a tacky track. You didn't just have an egg under your pedal. You had an egg with a baby chick that if you pressed too hard, it was going to kill it and die, right? Like that's how it was. Like you would spin the tires so easily, and it was very hard to be fast because you had to be so patient with the throttle, and you had to be so smooth with it. And look, real life racing, these guys are not just on throttle, off throttle. It's not like that. You gotta. It's a rocker. I say that all the time. It's a rocker. It's not an on-off switch. But it always seemed to be a little too extreme to me. Now, I will be the first to tell you, I'm not a late model guy. I've never been one in real life. I've been around them a little bit. I know stuff about them, but I never really set those up. I never worked on those. We don't have a lot of late model racing out here in California. So when we would be traveling and stuff like that, when we were running, sprint cars and midgets and stuff, there would be nights we would be there with late models and could see them. But for the most part, wasn't around late models a lot. Now, I have watched them a lot. I do, like late model racing, and I do know people that have raced them and do know about them. And from what they've said, this build is like the closest thing that we've ever had to like a real life late model, which I think is huge. It's incredible. So, yeah, let's head over to the garage. We'll take a look like we have with the other cars, because there are a couple things that you do want to know about. There are a lot of changes with this car, a lot of changes compared to the other ones. So let's head over and go through all that. All right, so first things first, these cars, the days of running like no stagger are gone. You want stagger in these cars. You need stagger in these cars. If you try to go around Fairbury with 1 inch of stagger and you're like, yeah, this is what we used to run, the thing's not going to turn. You've got to have stagger in them now. Now, I will say this. It is in combination with your rear spring split, your trailing arms, like it all ties together now. So the setup world with these cars from the stuff that I've looked at so far, and I spent a lot of time yesterday when I was working with these cars. I spent a lot of time creating new maths and formulas and stuff, updating my stuff in my Motec workbooks, just because these cars are also very aero dependent, and that was something that I was noticing yesterday when I would run on the bigger tracks. Having these cars, up on the bars with the nose down and getting it into the corner, you can tell the difference when you've got the nose too high and you're just losing speed because of drag. You can feel that. You can tell that. Keeping the car straight through the corner and not breaking it loose. Like, those are all things that matter. And one of the ways that is going to really help you do that is stagger. Okay. I do think there are some instances where it feels like it's a little too much for me, but I also like a lot of rear spring splits. So I like I said, I think those two are kind of really work together. But got to run stagger now. All minimum pressures, you don't have to do that anymore. In fact, you don't really want to do that. I was doing a lot of testing with the right rear pressure, and you could throw 20 pounds in this right rear if you want to and still be fast. Now, I will say this, tire pressure does affect the tire wear, depending on how you drive it. So if you put more air pressure in it, it's just like a rear tire, a real tire, meaning it's going to be pumped up more. It can be also easier to spin. Okay. So it's a balancing act, right? You don't want to just go, I'm going to max out my tire pressures and just have at it. Like, it's a balancing act, but I was playing with the pressures, and I did notice you can add more air to this. I was running around 14, 15 pounds in the right rear, and then like 9 or 10 in the left rear, just to see what the car would do. And I was just as fast as I was running 10 and 8, right? Going down to, if the track slicks off some, if you go from like 10 to 9, you can feel that. Okay. So the tire pressure thing is definitely, there's a lot with these cars. There is a lot with these cars. I don't think we're going to see where the setups were basically kind of where it was like, you got to run this if you want to be fast, right? Now, I've never fully bought into that, where someone would be like, well, hey, so-and-so does this, and so that's what I'm going to do because, he's the best. Okay, well, but you're not so-and-so, so why are you trying to drive like him, right? I know that I'm not, Blake Majulis or Tyler Shell, or I'm not those guys, so I'm not going to try to drive like them or set my car up like them. I'm going to make the car comfortable for me because that works best for me. And in all the testing I've done so far, and keep in mind we're still very, very early into this, but in all the testing I've done so far, these cars remind me a lot of the next gen Cup car when it comes to setup, meaning get the car comfortable for you. Yes, there are certain things that you want. Like I said, the aero does matter with these cars. But if you can get the profile right, and then everything else in terms of the balance, the mechanical grip and the balance, get that comfortable for you, and you should be pretty good. Okay. Chassis over here. One thing a lot of people have been complaining about is the car's not wanting to turn. I think this is a very big culprit. A lot of people don't look at this. iRacing setups have been, almost all of them have got negative offset in them. If we look at, let's look at Eldora, -6. Let's go Lernerville, -6. Let's go Port Royal, -6, right? I've seen up to -10 in setups. So, make sure that you are adjusting this. I hate that, so I put it at 0, okay? The steering ratio, towing, this all stuff up here is all the same. This stuff, in terms of what you are seeing, very, very different. If you remember, one of the things we would do is we would have this spring at, that this was like the rule of thumb, right? A few builds ago, you're going to like run the stiffest left front spring you can. You're going to run 150s everywhere else. And there you go, right? You're going to put all the shocks to 9, and that, no, you don't want to do that no more. In fact, one thing I was playing around with a lot was the right front spring rate, and this is pretty big. You can really control the feeling of the car with this right front spring. keep in mind, you still want the car to get down. You want that nose to be down. That was a big deal at the big tracks. But big deal at the big tracks. Alliteration aside, it was very significant, okay? But I noticed that there were certain tracks where if you didn't have this spring right, you would dig the nose in and the car wouldn't turn. We never really had that before. It was, I don't need a packer. I'll just run this low and bounce it off the ground. It doesn't matter. It matters now. It makes a difference. So the right front spring and this shim, I think, are going to be two areas where we're going to see quite a bit of changes. The caster, iRacing's been running a lot of caster split like this with their setups. I've been playing around a lot with this because the caster to me is a lot about comfort. I have not been using this split, but something to play around with. The left front spring, once again, you can play around with this. If you go sticking a 700 in here like we used to run, you're going to notice a big change in the car. So, really play with that. Trailing arms, rear end, we go down to a 50-pound left rear spring now. iRacing has been putting this in basically all the setups, a 50-pound left rear spring. You'll notice that all four wheels now have wheel spacing as well. That's pretty significant. We didn't have that before. Droop chain only goes up to 25.5 now and goes down to 23.5. Big change. Ballast, huge change. The farthest forward that you can get it is -11. If you remember, it would go to like 40 or something like that. Now it's -11 to -37. All that weight's on the rear. Left rear bite, another thing. You remember we'd have tracks where we would run like 200 pounds of left rear bite. I don't think we're going to be doing that anymore. You get this left rear bite up too high and you don't have the rest of this balanced out to handle it, the damn thing will not turn. So a lot of changes here. Very different than what it was before in terms of the subtleties of the setup, but overall I like it, and it feels great. And speaking of which, let's go turn some laps on the track. Okay, now one thing to note really quick before we go out and turn some laps, make sure that you've got the steering offset where you want it. I had people telling me, hey man, I'm turning and the car doesn't want to turn. This can have a lot to do with it, okay? Also, brakes, just so you know, pretty viable in the late models now. You can actually use them and they work, and they're not, most people don't realize this when it comes to things like brakes on a dirt car. Brakes are not just for like slowing the car down. Brakes are used to manipulate the car. You can use brakes to drive the car and really, really still be fast. If we watch here, going into the corner here, if I just drag a little bit of brake, see how it drops the nose and helps get the car up on the bars and set it? Now you still have to be smooth with the throttle to keep it straight. But you see how nice that is with the brakes? It's really nice. It used to be you'd hit the brakes and they'd lock up and the car would brake sideways. But you see, just drag a little bit of brake, the car stays nice and straight, gets up on the bars. I'm looking at the camera, about ready to hit the wall. So they can really be a benefit, which I think is awesome. That is something that, late model drivers do in real life. They do use the brakes sometimes. It's actually a way that you can help an ill-handling race car, is you can use a little bit of brake and it will help you drive that car, keep it up on the bars. Alright, so overall, the super late model, I really like it. It's a lot of fun. You can actually run side by side with people and you don't have to worry about, the car falling off the bars and darting one way or anything like that. Like, it's really good, okay? The tire wear on it, obviously the right rear, as with all the dirt cars, is going to be the one that gets used up the most. I noticed playing around some with the air pressures, that will have a big effect on your tire wear as well, okay? So Super late model, love it. It's a lot of fun. I cannot wait to race this thing. And yeah, I really, really enjoy it. Now, let's go take a look at the Pro late model real quick. Let's just do a few laps so you can see the little bit of difference between them, and I can cover why some people were having such a hard time with it. All right, so I've got up the Pro late models here. We're at Lucas Oil. I picked this track just because we were just here with the super late models. But when we look at the iRacing setup here for the Pro lates, once again, steering offset -8. And for those of you who don't know what this means, imagine you take your steering, you've got your steering wheel on, it's perfectly straight, it's centered. So then you take it off, you turn it 8 degrees to the left because negative is left, turn it 8 degrees to the left, and then you put it back on. That's what offset is. Now, what happens is steering offset, for example, I use steering offset a lot on the asphalt side. The reason I use it on the asphalt side is because when you make spring changes and camber and caster and all that stuff like that, like on the Xfinities or the trucks where like the trucks where we're coil binding them, or the Xfinities where we're skewing the car, right? We've got all that yaw in it. That causes the steering wheel to go one way or the other. So you use the offset to recenter it. Or in the situation with the next gen cup car, I will actually put some negative offset in it because I run that car fairly loose, especially on longer runs. And when I'm coming off the corner and the car is loose, I want to be counter steering, but still have my steering wheel slightly pointed left. It's really a comfort thing, okay? With the late model, what happens is when the car gets up on the bars, this is going to naturally cause your wheel to turn, and this is what's called bump steer, right? When the car is loaded, when it's in bump, okay, the car is going to naturally load, your toe changes, all this stuff changes. So what I'm imagining that they're doing, why they're doing this, is that they're doing this offset to help with that, right? So when the car's up on the bars, the wheel's not cranked one way or the other. The problem is that you could not feel that the offset is there. And so now what can happen is when you go to turn the car, you have to turn the wheel a little bit more to get the car to rotate. And if you're used to turning it a certain amount every time, it can be a very hard habit to break. So what happens is you turn it and you're like, oh my God, it's too tight, it's plowing. Okay, where all you need to do is get rid of that, and it will more than likely feel great. Okay, and you'll notice here, if you look at my steering wheel icon as we get onto the track here and we start going around, my wheel has a little bit of a kick to the right, but not very much. So, but you can see on the Pro lates, very similar to the super late models in terms of what they look like. Obviously not nearly as fast, not as much power, but you can still be on throttle with them. You don't really need to use brake with the Pro late models, but you can. One thing that I know a couple people were doing yesterday in the NARC fun races is they were running the bottom in the Pro lates and they were dragging brake, and it was helping them stay low. Whoops, I cut that corner way too early. It was helping them stay down on the bottom because they had cars running outside of them, and they said it worked great. You can see, just drag the brake a little bit and help set the car and keeps it nice and straight. One thing that will also help with is if you're going through slick, you can drag a little bit of brake, and that'll keep the car from sliding out from under. But you don't want to, see, like right there, I got it just a little too sideways. You still want to keep these things straight, just like we used to. The difference is you can actually be more on throttle with them, and they're not going to just crush your lap time. If you remember before, right, if you got on the throttle just a little too hard, it would cost you not even a tenth. It would cost you like 0.2, right? I mean, you would just watch your delta bar turn red. So it's much more on throttle, which is how it is in real life, as you can see in this clip. So as you guys just saw in that video clip of, you know, Brandon Sheppard driving his late model, right? I mean, very on throttle, right? Yes, they're lifting. Yes, they use some brake and stuff like that, but they're very on throttle, right? Yes, they got to use throttle control, but it's not like we were doing last season where you're like just barely rolling into it, right? It's not like that. Like, you got to be smooth with the throttle, but you can actually get on the throttle. And as you saw in that video, that's getting on the throttle. So yeah, man, I really like it. I think they did an awesome job with it. All right, you guys, so that's gonna do it all for the late models, Super and Pro. Overall, I love them. I really do. I liked the late models before, but now I love them. If you know, the last video I talked about how the dirt midgets are, you know, like my favorite dirt car. To be honest, I like all of the dirt cars. I love them. I really do. I know that there's some negativity out there right now about this dirt refresh and this dirt build. You know, the debate on the sprint cars is still happening. I mean, it is very, very polarizing. I've actually had some people, someone had posted a video in the SSR Discord that a former like real world sprint car driver did on the iRacing sprint cars, and he's like, they're broken. And I've had a couple of other people actually message me about that very video, asking me what do I think about it, because I talked about how I know real world sprint car people who were like, actually, I think it's much better. It's much closer to real life. So what is it, right? If you have people who have both driven those cars in real life, and one says it's crap and the other one's saying no, actually it's close to the real thing, what is it? I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. What I can tell you is with the late models, from the people that I've seen, and I don't personally know a lot of real world late model drivers, but from the ones that are on the sim and have talked in the forums and social media and stuff like that, they have said that, look, this thing is as close as it's ever been to the real thing, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. It really is. So hats off to them once again. I really think, and I'm just going to give you guys a heads up right now, every review that I do of these dirt cars, it's going to be positive. I don't have negative stuff to say, and if there is negative stuff, it's very small. It's one or two things. I love the late models. I love the big blocks. I love the UMPs. I love the midgets, the non-wings, the wings. I love them. Okay, the only cars I don't love are the street stocks and the legends, and that's because I never loved them. I don't drive them, right? But all the other ones, love them. I absolutely love them. I think the dirt refresh is a home run. I really do. And I think it can only get better. The wing sprint car is the one car that's like still out, you know, it's up for debate. And I'm willing to listen to people you know, who say like, no, it's not right, this needs to be fixed. Like, I'm willing to listen to that. I will 100% come back and be like, hey, actually I was wrong. You know, like I said before, though, it was just my opinion, you know, that I like them, but I will 100% listen to people on that. So, you know, I think everything overall is incredible, and it's I think we have something really, really good to build from. And so for all the negativity and flack that we all love to give iRacing, we all do it. Even I do it. We all do it, right? We all love to point out, you know, the things that are wrong. This, I think they got right, especially, you know, with these late, I mean, we're talking about the late models in this video. I think they got it right. I think they nailed it. And I think they can only get better, which is awesome. So, you guys, that's going to do it. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. Please like. If you didn't like it, hit the don't like button or the dislike button, whatever. Leave a comment down below. Subscribe, share, all that other stuff that every other YouTuber on earth asks you to do. You want to do that for me? Do it. Please. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. The fact that I get to do this for you guys and that you guys come out and enjoy it is awesome. So I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. As always, if you want to check out any of the stuff that we have to offer, the SSR community, the website, any of that stuff, links for all that down in the description below. But that's going to do it. Thank you very much. And as always, I want to wish you good luck, good racing. Take care.